Eden Lasse, welcome to the Sport Profile.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Of course, of course. Are you excited for the college season on a scale of 1 to 10? How excited are we?
At least an 11.
At least an 11.
I love women's college basketball. I love college basketball, but women's in particular. And
Totally.
the WNBA playoffs are so fun. I'm really enjoying them. But when I start to feel like a little fall in the air, I'm like, ooh, it's
It,
coming. It's
we
almost
we
time.
we are in fact recording this on October 1st, which I still can't believe. I like it's not October to me.
No, yeah, I'm excited, but I also have like so much to do before then. But yeah, the
Yeah.
summer really went right by, as it always does.
What was Eden Lasse's summer highlights?
I had a couple. So I tried to do some things for like myself. I'm not very good at having hobbies or doing stuff outside of the job. As you know, it gets to be really intense.
I
So I
do.
took a sewing class because I've always wanted to learn to like sew my own
Ooh.
clothes. And that was really fun. I'm not good at it yet, but I also think it's important to have hobbies that you're not great at and just do them because you like them. So I'm
Ooh.
trying to do that. And
Yeah.
then the big thing, I went to Northern Ireland to see the British Open in Portrush. That
That's
was really
sick.
fun. Yes, so much fun. And Northern Ireland is gorgeous. We had such a great time. Golf is really fun live. Like, even if you're a person who thinks golf is boring, which used to be me,
Sure.
it's so fun because you're just outside with like a bunch of people who are super, at least over there, super into what's going on and like really excited to be there, really great fans. So
Right.
it was such a blast.
Let's dive into that a little bit. Like you were sewing. Um, what kind of sparked that a little bit?
I've always loved fashion and clothes. Growing up, I used to go thrifting with my sister all the time, like back when before it was cool. I remember getting a pair of red Doc Martens for
Ooh,
$3 at the Goodwill
three
when I was
dollars.
four. Yeah, when I was 14, I still have them. And so that kind of
Ooh,
sparked my interest in clothes and in fashion. And I just always thought it'd be a fun project. Like my mom used to sew our Halloween costumes every
that's so
year.
cool.
She'd be up like all night the night before Halloween trying to finish them for us. So I remember
What was
that.
the costume that she sewed? Is any like characters in particular or like
Oh
styles you
my gosh.
remember?
I was Robin Hood in third grade. She sewed me a great outfit with a little hat. I had like a little plastic bow and arrow. I loved that costume.
Nice.
Yeah, I was a little bit of a tomboy, so I had a 3 year stretch where so I was Robin Hood, and then I was a knight, and then I was Zorro. So there you go. So
Zorro.
I went through
What's Zorro from? I'm
like
gonna like.
that mask of Zorro, and he's got like the little mustache in the
Oh
movie with like
yes.
Antonio Banderas. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
And so yeah, so I loved that costume too. So I was those things, and
Oh, that's
I loved
fun.
them. Yeah. So my mom, we always used to tease her because she would sew like 1 week a year, but she would just be going so hard and like up all night. And, of course, poor thing, like she's our mother. And then she was also a nurse. So she worked 12-hour shifts. And I'm like, where's my Zorro costume, mom? So, like,
What
loved her so
does
much for that.
what does she think of your costume or costumes? What does she think of the fact that you're trying to sew now?
She actually bought me the sewing machine for my birthday a couple
Oh,
years ago
really?
because I'd expressed an interest in wanting to do that. And I'm just sort of getting to it now.
That's awesome. So,
Thank
in
you.
addition to sewing, what else are you locked into?
Women's basketball is always going to be my big thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I love roller skating. I just started running. I'm training for a 10K, which is new for me because I am a
Ooh.
bad runner and a slow runner, but it's a good challenge.
So let me ask you
And
this
yeah,
actually. That brings up a very interesting question. I've talked about this with my friends because one of my friends she said that she's trying to get back into running. Her and I we did cross country in high school together, and I asked her, at what point in time can you call yourself a runner?
yeah,
Like, you know, you can go out and jog. Does that make you a runner? I don't think so. But like
no,
one jog, like I can say I work out. I go to the gym, try for three times a week, so I can say I work out. At what point do you think you're calling yourself a runner?
yeah, I think if you do it consistently, and it's something you enjoy, or maybe you
Yeah.
don't enjoy it, because I think a lot of people who run don't actually think it's very fun.
Oh no.
um, if it's something you do on a regular basis, I think you can call yourself a runner, even if you don't run far, even if you run slow. You know,
Sure.
like I'm I'm posting 11, 12 minute miles. Like I am
And that's okay.
crawling, but I think it's good to push yourself, and I do it like 3 times a week. So I call
Amazing.
myself a runner.
I,
I'm not a
I think
great runner, but I
no, you're
like it, and I
absolutely a
think that's what
runner. You have
matters. Thank
crossed the
you.
threshold. There you have crossed the the theoretical unwritten threshold there. Like this is all complete sarcasm and fun with my friend and I. Um and cuz she was trying to say like, "Oh yeah, I went for a run and now I'm a run." I'm like, "No, you're not.
Oh,
Like you went on one run.
let me ask you a running question.
Hit me."
Do you get a runner's high like when you reach a certain point? Because everyone says that happens. It does not happen to me. I get a runner's low where I'm like, I wish this was over, but
And
I've never hit a runner's high.
so yes and no. I'm God, I'm really tapping into like high school Dylan here. I think I got a little bit of a runner's high specific like I ran the 800 in high school and I think I would get a runner's high maybe after that first lap and not so much when I did cross country. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was just like a pit of despair.
It's
Um
like no finish line in sight. You're just going
right,
forever.
it's just
Mm-hmm.
woods and then you're trying to like turn and not like trip in a ditch or whatever it is. I mean, like, yes, it's a course. It's like a sanctioned, safe course, obviously, but like, it's different terrains and whatnot versus like a track. It's like it's flat, you know what you're doing. So
Yes,
like
yes.
yeah, I think I got more of a runner's high there than I did in cross country, but I don't know. I to tell you the truth, I haven't been I would not call myself a runner now
Okay.
because I don't run, but I'd love to get back into it. So I'll
Yeah.
get back to you on it if I do get a runner's high.
Please let me know.
So let me ask you about the low then. At what point do you get the low? Is it
Oh,
when
it,
you're finishing or is it like don't say when you're starting. That's not that come
no,
on.
no, no. No, when it depends, honestly. I used to get it at like the 1 mile because I just
Okay.
didn't run. So I'd hit 1 mile and be like, oh, this is hard. I've been doing this forever, it feels like. But now I'm hitting it more around 3 or 4, and then I can kind of push through it and keep going. Like the end is awesome.
3 or 4
Yes,
mark of a
miles.
what
Yeah.
of a total of what?
Like right now I'm training for a 10K, so it's like what,
Yeah.
6.2.
Yes.
So at this point I'm running like 5 and 5.5. Is
Okay.
my high. So I'm because the 10K that I'm running is in 2 weeks, so it's coming up.
Ooh.
So, but my runner's low gets further and further the longer I do it. So that's good.
Okay. Do you think after your 10K you're gonna increase to like a half?
No,
No.
I don't think so. I feel like 10K is gonna be my limit.
Okay.
6 miles feels like a lot. Like
Yeah.
I'm training with my cousin who's a great runner, and
Sure.
she is training for a half marathon, and she'll just go running and say to me like, "Oh, I just lost track of time and I was all of a sudden 8 miles in." That doesn't happen to me.
Hmm.
I have to be like constantly knowing how far I'm going, where I am. Like I'm always looking for the finish line. And I'm
Yeah.
starting to enjoy it more, but I'd be lying if I said that finishing wasn't the best part, because I'm like, "Yes, I did it."
See. So you do get a runner's high.
At the end,
Yeah, it counts.
when I stop, does that
Yes.
count? Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll take it then.
That's the definition of that's like peak runner's high is when it's over.
Okay, got it. See, yeah, I thought it was supposed to be like some point in the run where you just hit like euphoria and you can just keep running
Oh,
forever.
that's part of it too.
Yes, yeah, I don't get
It
that
can
part.
it there's see the thing about a runner's high is like there's no distinct time it can come up or like pop up. You just like enter that state. whether it's like, as you said, and like, well, no, that was your low, but
That's
like,
my love.
yeah, like it could come around like a fourth mile. It could come at the end. It could come when you just start, which is like kind of crazy. I mean, if you're able to get it when you start, you're like in a league of your own.
That must be so nice.
I know, like to have that type of mindset, that's fantastic. But listen, let's talk hoops for a minute.
Yes,
I
let's talk.
Yeah, I read that you started a a high school basketball site when you were
I
in
did.
Michigan, and it was like the first like subscription based type service. Walk me through that a little bit. Like what inspired that?
So I my first job out of college was covering hockey in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So like I always tell people if they don't know where that is, Michigan has like the little mitten part and then the part that looks kind of like a dog, and the dog is the Upper Peninsula.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was covering college hockey because they have a really good college hockey program, Michigan Tech. When I was there, so that's what I started doing. But it's a tiny little newsroom, so everyone's doing everything. So I did a lot of high school sports too, and I really enjoyed covering, high school basketball, high school football, that kind of thing, high school hockey. And I actually met my husband because he worked in the same newsroom, also doing sports there. And he's from the
Really?
area. Yeah, he's from the area. And we just kind of always felt like the kids there didn't necessarily get the coverage that they deserve because high school sports is so huge. Like
Yes.
high school basketball, high school football out there because they don't have pro teams. They have the one, two college hockey teams, but they don't have like any other Division 1 sports.
Right.
So, he always tells me stories about how if you went to like a restaurant for breakfast, there'd be like a bunch of old guys, taking bets on the high school games, right? Like, or like among each other, like $1, nothing like crazy. Not talking like bookies, but like that was the thing that,
Hope.
that would take a crazy turn. No, so that would be the thing they'd be talking about, like who's gonna win, the high school football game tonight between these
Yeah.
two little schools. And so it was such a big deal up there, but it was really undercovered just because small newspapers, it's hard to do everything you
Yes.
want to do. So we, for a few years, covered high school football and high school basketball just on our own subscription site. It was, sort of like The Athletic, but tiny for one little region of high school sports.
Hmm.
And it was such a blast. Like, I have never had more fun covering anything. I think, first of all, it's great because, got to do it together, but
I mean,
also, like,
yeah.
yeah, but also, I mean, it's a small area. And so you really got to know all these kids, you got to know all the coaches.
Yeah.
And so it was exciting to be able to do that for them. And I really connected with like that community and had such a great time. And so that's, one of my favorite things that I've done in my career so far.
That's awesome. What was the name of the site called?
It was called Upbeat Sports.
Upbeat Sports. Very nice. And congratulations. I know you guys just
Thank
celebrated an
you.
anniversary.
Yeah.
That's
6
awesome. Love
years.
that.
Just
6 years.
wild.
Is it wild? Is it wild to think that like you were doing that sport that, Upbeat Sports like with your husband? Obviously you didn't know it at the time, but like
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think we started dating like pretty quick after we met, even though we worked together.
yeah,
You just kind of know,
of
it's so
course.
cheesy, but sometimes you really just do. So we were together all the time anyway, so it didn't really feel that different. And it was kind of one of those things too, like when we got married, is people were like, "Oh my gosh, so much is going to change," and nothing really changed because we were already together all the time. So
Yeah,
already had a good relationship, right? So, but
absolutely.
yeah, not everyone gets to work with their spouse, and I don't think everyone would want to work with their spouse. So we
Yeah.
were lucky that we worked well together and that we got to do that together.
So I know that you're, freelancing a bunch now, you work with Hoops HQ, I mean, how X amount of years down the line, is there an upbeat sports revival in the works? Do you think that could happen where you and your husband do something again?
Oh gosh, I don't think so. Like as much fun as it was and as much as we loved doing it, it was such a grind.
Of
We
course.
were so first of all, we both had other jobs, right, during the day.
Yeah.
And then we would come home and sometimes drive as much as, 3 hours to and from games. to
Mhm.
cover, and then you write the story, you take the photos, you edit it, you send it out. And then we had a couple freelancers that would do the same things with them. So, we would be working like 15-hour days
Right.
and never really saw each other because we'd be like going in opposite directions, right? So,
Yeah.
we were really young when we started it and did it for a few years, and I think you get to the point where you kind of get burnt out. You can't really do it at the same level
Sure.
anymore. So we got to that point, and then also, he's not in journalism anymore. He does marketing now for
Nice.
an engineering firm. So like it's very different, but that allows me to write into freelance. So it's kind of, there's that give and take in relationships, and
Totally.
that's sort of where ours is at right now. But it was such a fun chapter of our lives and our careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to also ask a little bit about like, what you're doing with Hoops HQ. That's how you and I were introduced as well. Um, I'm curious, like, what stories do you really like to, kind of tell? What type of story is Eden Lassie getting excited about?
Yeah, I love just player profiles. I've always loved, the story behind the box score kind of thing. I think it's such a privilege to be able to talk to somebody and be trusted with their story, and they tell you all about who they are, and then you get to go turn around and share that with an audience, through
Yeah,
your writing. I think that's my favorite part. In particular, I love writing stories about people, before they blow up, before everyone knows who they are, just kind of getting to know them first and really
yeah, there's a
figuring out
lot of
like what
value in
makes
that.
what makes this person who they are, and how does that pertain to what they do as an athlete. So those are my favorite kind of stories. Like I in 2021 or 2022, I was freelancing for Just Women's Sports at the time, and I
Hmm.
wrote an article on Lauren Betts when she was still in high school and she was the
Oh
number
my
one
God,
recruit.
Lauren Betts,
Yeah, and
so
so
good.
I've maintained such an awesome relationship with her and her family, and gotten to write about her a lot more since then. But
Oh, that's
like that
great.
first story, yeah, but that first story was so fun because in women's basketball in particular, and women's sports, we have this problem where it's like she should have had 20 stories written on her big features already when she was a senior in high school, and
Right.
she didn't. And so I got to be kind of one of the first people to really dive into who she was and what made her who she was. And like I said, I think that's such a privilege, and it's also such a fun thing. Like this job allows you to really connect with people that you would never get to otherwise, and learn about these people. And then, like I said, now it's your job to share that with other people.
Yeah.
And it's such an incredible thing to be able to do.
Oh, for sure. Where do you think that passion comes from for women's sports then? Some people, do recognize, like as you said, like, hey, there's like an emptiness here. There's a hole. Like I can fill that gap.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I mean, it was what I was first assigned to cover when I was at Ryder. I started with field hockey and then it transitioned into women's basketball, and I just happened to enjoy it then. Like, it's not that there was a lack; it was just what I was assigned. So for you, where does that kind of passion come from, and how has it, grown over the years?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always loved sports, but I didn't really love women's sports growing up because it wasn't on TV. I'm only 30 years old. I still think I'm pretty
Sure.
young, but like you still couldn't see. I remember watching Candace Parker on TV. I
Hmm.
remember catching a couple WNBA games like on a random chance.
Sure.
But it was really hard. And then like the Final Four would be on.
And where did you catch those WNBA games?
Oh gosh, I don't know because when I when I was very small, like elementary school and like through part of middle school, we didn't have cable. So if there was a
Sure.
game we wanted to watch, we'd go to my grandparents' house. And
Okay.
so at that time, it was like what my parents wanted to watch, which was they both went to Michigan State. So it was like Michigan State basketball, right? We were watching,
Yeah.
those teams.
I was just wondering if it was
So
on a Facebook live stream,
I have
which is
no
what we've
idea.
seen from before.
Yeah. At some point, I ended up watching, like when we did have cable, at some point, I would, see a random game and, be excited because if I wanted to watch women's sports or girls' sports, I would either go to like a local high school game or I would go
Right.
to, the Division II college in my hometown. So I think to go back to your question, kind of,
Yeah,
I didn't really connect with women's sports when I was a kid because frankly, I didn't know that I could. Like
sure.
I remember playing basketball as a kid and thinking, this would be so much better if I was a boy. And not
Hmm.
because like of anything, any gender identity or anything like that, but just because I knew people were going to the boys' games and they weren't going to the girls' games, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I watch, basketball with my dad, I get to see, Tom Izzo coaching all these guys and everyone's so
Right.
excited. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, so I didn't know that that could happen for women or for girls until I got older and, and then I started seeing it. And I really connected with women's sports, girls' sports when I was in the Upper Peninsula covering girls' basketball.
Yeah.
Because I was
No.
like, hey,
And
I relate to these girls a lot more. Like, I love telling their stories.
yeah.
They're great athletes, and it was really fun. So that kind of jump started it. Sorry, that was
No,
a
that
really
makes
long-winded
sense.
answer, but
No, for sure. I thought that was a great answer. You had mentioned something very interesting actually.
yeah,
Before when you were talking about Lauren Betts, those are the types of stories you seek out, and I'm curious. Do you wish people would maybe like tell you, hey, Eden, like here's a really awesome athlete. He or she's doing really awesome things. Like you should really write up, or you should know just like you should know about them. Do you wish people came to you with stories like that to like help supplement kind of like your planning a little bit?
I love it when people come to me with stories. There'll be sometimes where you get a pitch and it's obviously not right for you or whatever, but I'll
For
take
sure.
a hundred of those to get one good story
Right.
pitch. So I think there's so many places that story ideas can come from. And I
Hmm.
think you should always be open to it. But yeah, like if an agent says, hey, I think you should be covering this person, or, I'll ask like coaches when I do interviews with them, who on your team do you think should be highlighted? Or,
Oh.
SIDs, you can send them an email at the beginning of the year. It's like, what's going on with your team? Like who's got a story that people should know? And, you'll end up getting some great things that way. I think the two big ways that I, come up with story ideas is either if I'm watching something and I have a question in my head that I think is that's kind of just continuing to come back to me, then I'm like, okay, other people are going to be interested in that too. So then I sort of research and figure out what's the bigger story here. Or it's from, people who are around the program who truly know the teams coming to me and saying, hey, this person's cool. And you say, okay, let's figure out how cool they are. So
Yeah. Yeah. How cool are they actually?
like
Oh,
you
of
got to work
course.
hard sometimes to find things that are
Yes.
interesting. And I think that's one of the cool things about being the first, or like one of the first people to do like a deep dive on somebody is like you're uncovering all that for the first time. It
Yeah.
becomes really hard when you're, trying to write a feature on like Paige Becker's when a million
Right.
people have written on her. And you're like, that's another skill in itself is how can I make this different now?
Yeah. For
So
sure.
yeah,
I mean, I try to do. That's kind of my approach with this a little bit. I try to learn something that like you wouldn't think I know or something. Like I've had people say like, "Where did you find that one about me?" And
I
I'm
love
like, "What?
I love it when people say stuff like that. It's
Oh, you
such a
do?
high when yeah, when they're
Really?
like, I can't believe you know that about me. I'm like, yes. Like
So tell
I
me. So
really
tell me
did my
who Jake Bugg
research.
is."
Oh god. That's my favorite musical artist.
Yeah,
He
because I don't know if his name was Jake, but I think he should have been cast as Bob Dylan in the movie because
he does
that
have kind
that
of a
brother
yeah,
sounds like Bob Dylan.
he does. They've got kind of similar song, like songwriting and stuff. So Jake Bugg has been my favorite artist since I was like 17. I don't know. I had a friend in high school who was like so cool. Her name was Vanessa, and she, always had the coolest, best music. And she showed me one of his songs. It's called Two Fingers, and it's so good. And I got obsessed with it, and then kind of got obsessed with his music overall. And like, I've just been listening to it since I was 17.
That's
And
awesome. And like you saw
yeah,
you saw him in concert. I know that must
I
have been
did.
great.
It was
Um,
so cool. We went, so my husband got me tickets because, Jake Bugg is a British, like a small British artist, so he doesn't really come to
yeah.
the US that much. So he was coming to New York, so we got
Hmm,
tickets, and it was, a general admission concert.
sure.
And I told my husband, oh, I don't care if I'm close or whatever. Like, I just want to be there. And then the doors open, and he turns around. I'm sprinting to the front by the stage. So I apparently
That's
did want to get
amazing.
close. Yeah, so it was a really cool, like 17-year-old Eden was so excited, and so was 30-year-old Eden. Like it was awesome.
Uh,
So
did you? So you saw him? You saw him just recently. Like when was the first time you saw him?
I'd never seen him before that.
Oh,
That was the first
really?
concert I'd seen him in. Yeah, so it was. I'd just been
Wow.
listening to his music, but I'd never gotten to see him because he
Oh,
does
that's
like
cool.
festivals in England and stuff, and I'm not
Oh,
going there
right,
all the
right.
time. So yeah, so
Yeah,
it's very cool.
I missed the fact when you said he was British.
That's okay. So yeah, that's my favorite musical artist, and
What
like you said, I can't believe that you know that about me.
I when I saw that, I was like, "Huh, like who's this guy?" I mean, I'm a music nerd myself a little bit, and
Yeah.
I also love Bob Dylan. So like, when I saw a clip of his performing Lightning Bolt, I think that's like one of his new songs.
That's one of his first, like on his first album, but it's a great
That's his
song
first
still.
album. I don't know, new to me, definitely not new to him then.
Yeah,
But
no, it's a great song.
yeah, I was like, all right, this is a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah.
So what type for people who don't know you, what type of music do you like then? Is it that kind of style? And aside from Jake, who what's on Eden Losse's playlist?
I like all kinds of different music. I know people always say that, but I really do. I love Jake Bugg, like you said. I like the Kooks a lot. They were another band that I really liked growing up.
Love.
Love them. I like Harry Styles. He's a mainstream guy that I do like. I like a lot of mainstream music too.
Oh,
I
you're
love
gonna love
Olivia
this then.
Rodrigo. Like I like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would say like when I was younger, it was again like what my friend Vanessa was listening to, and then what my older sister Ellen was listening to. So she loved the Kooks, she loved Jet, she loved Oasis. So like that was the
Nice.
music that I was listening to.
Oh, love
And
that.
so and now I like a lot like I like Paris Paloma and Sophie Azalea, like any kind of
Nice.
angry women's music. Like I'm very into that too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's fun. I I mean, a lot of people say this about me, and it is true. My friends say that the only music I like is if somebody's dead or no longer making music. And that is absolutely true. Tom Petty, the Beatles,
yes,
George
great.
Harrison, um, Roy Orbison. That's on my playlist. But guess what? So is Bruce Springsteen. So is Taylor Swift. So is Harry Styles. So is Sabrina Carpenter. Go Go Juice,
Yeah,
banger.
that's what I always say. If it's a banger, it's a banger. It doesn't matter
Right.
genre. It doesn't matter when it was written. Like if it's good, it's good.
Right. Like Speak Now, fantastic album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But like the
pretty much
majority of
anything.
my music is from people who are dead or no longer making music. That is absolutely true, and I will stand by that. So like yeah, my friends have a point. Like they're giving it to me as a dig, but like it's
Yeah.
true.
You like what you like, and
This
that's
is
fine.
true. This is true. I which I'm also curious about like aside from music, something I also learned about you is that like you're a very outdoorsy person. You're a very big hiker. Um, And I do want to ask, you've kind of, I've kind of just like researched a little bit that, you kind of got into fishing for a little bit, but you weren't that good. How are you now?
Okay, so this is the thing about fishing. I've been into fly fishing since I was probably 14.
Really?
But the thing about it is, I've never really gotten any better.
Sure.
And I think that I do it with my sisters. Every year we go home to Colorado to see our parents, and we go to this one spot and we fish, these little creeks and these little lakes, and we typically catch tiny little brook trout. And that's kind of all we can do. Like, don't
Right.
ask me to go anywhere I don't know the water. I'm not going to be able to read it. I'm not going to be able to tell you what to fish with. But in those little spots, I really excel. And we just have such a good time. Like,
Do you
my
have the
oldest
patience for
sister,
fishing?
yeah, I do actually. I
I
always
don't say
say,
that
like,
in like a derogatory way. I'm genuinely
no,
asking because I
no.
don't.
Yeah, so I always say, oh, you're out in nature, it's beautiful. Like, even if you don't catch anything, it's a great day.
Sure.
But that's kind of what sucky fishermen say because I definitely have way more fun when I am catching stuff.
Of
It just
course.
doesn't always happen, so I kind of got to change my mindset.
Right.
But mostly it's just fun because I get to do it I have two older sisters. They're my favorite people in the world, and like we
Yeah.
do it together, and that's the best part to me.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great time. Um, I wanted to ask, going back to journalism a little bit, freelancing is tough. It is a grind. What do you wish people knew more about, like, the freelancing landscape and that kind of world, um, that you've experienced, that people who trying to get into this, don't exactly know. What things do you wish people knew about what you do?
Yeah, I think the thing that frustrates me the most about freelancing is that it's not very accessible for a lot of people. And what
Sure.
I mean by that is you either have a full-time job on top of it, and then you're just freelancing and writing because you love it or you want to get into it. Or you're lucky like me in that I have a partner that has a real person job who can help support us and
Oh,
pay the
you got
bills
a
and
real
stuff.
person job?
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like he's working a 9 to 5, right? So
Sure.
that I can, because when you're a freelancer, you never know how much money you're going to make or
Yes.
when your stories are going to come, right? So, like, I think it's not accessible in that if I didn't have that safety blanket, safety net, I wouldn't be able to do it. I
Sure.
would have to get either a full time job and probably not have time, or I just wouldn't be able to write. And I think that sucks because I'm sure there's so many people who are really, really good at this who just can't because they don't have the, financial like buffer to do
Right.
it. And so that really sucks.
Sure.
And I think that's, a lot of things in the industry is like pay isn't great. So you're going to have people who can afford to not get paid very well doing stuff. And that's, the part that really frustrates me because we don't know who's out there who could be incredible at this.
Yeah. So I'm really curious, actually. Like, you were mentioned about your husband and how he's supplementing you a little bit, and not that you're not pulling your own weight, you absolutely are, but what keeps you most motivated, in the freelance setting? Because it is a grind. You do have to go out you and search your own things. You don't have that, I don't want to use an editor as a safety blanket, but, like, you're going to be pitching a lot. You have to do that legwork yourself. What kind of keeps you motivated in that area?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One, as I mentioned, I have the best support system in the world. Like my two sisters, my parents, my husband, they're all my biggest cheerleaders. They all really believe in me as a writer
Yeah,
and believe that I can make a career out of this. And, I'd be lying if I said I want to freelance forever. I don't. I would love to have a
sure.
full time job. I've had
Yes.
them in the past, but the industry is volatile, as you know.
Oh,
And
you
there's
better
not a
believe
ton of
it.
jobs in women's sports, and that's just how it is. But so they really, inspire me to keep going. And then another thing I will say is like, I know I'm good at it. Like I'm
Yeah,
not a
you
person
are.
that's super, thank you, not a person that's super confident in a lot of ways. But when it comes to my ability as
Oh,
a
you're gonna
writer,
love
I
my last
am.
question then.
I am. Like, I know that I'm good at what I do. And so that does keep me motivated as well. And, that probably makes me sound cocky, but if you saw how self conscious
No.
I am in every other part of my life, you would be like, oh my gosh, okay. So, yeah, so that really keeps me going too, because I do feel
Yes.
like I have something to offer.
Yeah. What's something you wish people knew more about, like, just the journalism industry as a whole, or maybe even actually more specifically the women's sports side of journalism? Is there anything you wish people knew more about, that particular beat that you don't think gets amplified enough, in your experience as a journalist?
I think one thing I wish people knew is often you'll get asked, oh, why aren't you covering this? Why aren't you writing about this?
Mm,
And it's not always because you don't want to. Sometimes I've had a lot of stories that I've pitched, and people say, well, they're not really a big enough name, or they're not this, or,
I've been
let's
there
find a
too.
way to get a bigger person in the headline. And that sucks, I think,
It
especially because
does.
in men's sports, I feel like there's a lot more leeway for, this person is interesting or this person's from a smaller school,
Sure.
but they're good and people are going to know them eventually. So let's write about them now.
Right.
And I feel like that doesn't really happen in women's sports. If it's not driving, if it's not driving Caitlin Clark type numbers right away, they're like, no, no one cares about that. And that's not true. People do care about it. It's just they have to know they can find it. And
Right.
so you have to kind of build up that audience. And I think people don't necessarily have that patience a lot of times in the industry that they need in order to grow that.
No, that makes sense too. You know, I know you've listened to some other episodes, so you do know my question. But Eden Lasse, like professionalism aside, what do you like most or admire about yourself? You're ready for this thing. You better. You texted me this morning. You said I've listened to episodes. I'm like, damn, this question's not gonna be a surprise. Her, you're smiling throughout me asking. You better come ready. You
Well,
don't you don't you say nothing.
first of all, I now that you brought it up, me listening to some episodes, I do have a bone to pick with you, which is that your last guest was John Fanta, and you're asking me to follow that up. That's crazy. I can't
Stop
follow
it.
that guy up. He's amazing.
But so
So
are
that's my
you.
first thing. Thank you. But I will just say, the thing that I'm most proud of for myself is I think I have a really kind heart for other people. Like I try and see the best in everybody,
Yeah.
and I try and have empathy for everyone's situation. And I think when I was younger, I kind of thought that was a little bit of a weakness because sometimes people sort of took advantage of that, or they're, mean or whatever. But I think seeing the best in someone is always a good thing. And if they don't turn out to be the best, that's not on you, right?
No.
So I always try and have empathy for people and their situations, and always try and be excited for people when they succeed. So that's the thing I really like about myself. And no matter what, happens in my career or my life, I'll always know I have that, and that's important to me.
Absolutely. I love that. Eden, thank you so much for coming on. It's so great to reconnect with you and chat, hear your story. And I'm super excited to see all your coverage, this coming basketball season.
Well, thank you so much. It was so fun, and I love talking to you, and you do such a nice job hosting this. So I'm
Thank you.
looking forward to listening to future episodes.
Absolutely. This episode is brought to you by Digital Sport by Hot Paper Lantern, a division of the PR, brand, and marketing agency Hot Paper Lantern. Digital Sport by Hot Paper Lantern helps brands grow at the intersection of sports, tech, and gaming. Learn more at hpldigitalsport.com or find them on LinkedIn at Digital Sport by Hot Paper Lantern.